With that, welcome again to today's panel discussion looking at community-based planning for better transport outcomes. And as you may remember, if you tuned in before, the two previous sessions, this work in the Boston region has spanned many years, and it wouldn't be possible without the role of different stakeholders. And today we're highlighting stories from communities, advocates, and grassroots, because public transport can be better through people that use it. So I just wanted to do a round of introductions of our panel. First, starting with Lisa Jacobson, who will be the session moderator. She's the program officer for mobility at the Barr Foundation. She leads the mobility strategy on the climate team and collaborates on projects and grant making that support people accessing what they need in low carbon ways. She has been a key partner in this work, and Barr has been supporting the transport initiatives over the past decade. So welcome, Lisa. Let's also welcome the three panelists from the region, starting with Chevelle Olivier, who is the executive director at Mattapan Food and Fitness Coalition. She will share examples of her work that activates the Mattapan community and its members through activities that merge transport and well-being. And then we have Reverend Merlin Desrosiers, who is a pastor and director of the Everett Haitian Community Center. Aside from her organizer's role, she has served as an expert for the region and national government initiatives. She will bring the perspective of community outreach and elevating community voice for better transport service. Welcome. And then finally, we have Jared Johnson, Executive Director at Transit Matters. He will talk about the work of Transit Matters in the region with examples of advocacy around improving the bus service and infrastructure. So welcome, everyone. We'll have a chance to hear more about your work and about who you are in just a second. And with that, I'll pass it to Lisa.
Excellent, thank you. This is really fun to be here for the three of three installments of this BRT webinar series. As you just heard, we've been engaged with ITDP in supporting moving towards BRT in Boston for over 10 years. And as we wind down that initiative, still supporting bus in the region, but winding down this particular initiative, it's been really fun to see the progress over the last 10 years and be able to participate in this webinar series as sort of one of the capstones of this work. 10 years ago in Boston, or in Greater Boston, we still have a bus line here that people called BRT, that they called a bus rapid transit. But it certainly is not, it still is not. And working with ITDP and others over the last 10 years to educate people so they know that this is not true BRT, they know that better bus is possible, and help inspire them to ask for more and better bus. And you got to hear about some of the other work in the last two webinars about some of the creative aspects, and then some of the tactical urbanism work and the pilots. I'm really excited for this webinar to focus on community engagement, which has meant different things to us at different times throughout the 10 years. We've certainly not always done it right, and we've approached it from different ways. And there's a lot to learn from our work, in particular from these three panelists. But before turning it over to them, I know that some folks here are from across the world, and I just wanted to give a little bit of framing about like, what is community engagement and why is it important? And I'm certainly not the expert on this, so I'm speaking about where I'm at and what I've learned and try to practice. So, because we are working to build transport systems for people to use, a lot of us, including me, that went to school for transportation planning, call ourselves the experts. We're really passionate about it. We have education in it. We've experienced transportation systems from around the world. So this, in a sense, makes us experts in one sense, because we have this technical knowledge and how to solve problems. But I would contend that our expertise doesn't necessarily mean that we are good at identifying the problems. And sometimes we're not so great at finding the solutions either. And for us to really do a better job at our jobs, identifying problems and finding the solutions, we need to hear from the people actually using the transportation system in their communities. Even people that aren't using some of the public transport system, the ones that want to use it or even could use it. And we're not going to be successful if we don't work with people using the system. We want our work to be successful, and we need to include people using the system in the process, or else it's a little bit unclear on who we're designing for. But in the United States, we've done a lot of assuming about what people need and assuming what's best for them without actually asking. And this has not always brought us to a great place. And we end up building things for white and wealthy people or for corporations to profit off of, and not necessarily building transportation systems for the people who need it. So for me, authentic community engagement means that people who live in a place where you are working are partners in the project. They're a part of the work from the start. They identify what's needed, they share what they need, and they're really part of the work throughout and in a meaningful way. This goes beyond sort of consultation and a meeting here and there. It actually shares power with community members by valuing their knowledge and expertise and perspectives, just as we do with traditional private sector consultants. So when talking about community engagement, we tend to have a more respectful process, more accountability, better decision-making, ideally build some trust and have better outcomes. So just a little bit of framing for, I hope, what we're going to dive into more today. And our speakers will be able to offer a lot more than I just did. So I want to turn it over to them. They already got brief introductions, so I'd like for you to hear a little bit more about them before we really, as we jump in. So starting with Chevelle, and then for all three of you, could you just tell us a little bit about yourselves and what you do, and what your organization does, and how community engagement is core to your work?
Thank you so much, Lisa. Gonna wait to see if I want to pull up the slides for me, provide some visuals for you all. So you can go to the next slide. So what does it look like when a community leads? This is Jillian. She is a Mattapan resident, which is a neighborhood in Boston. Jillian and other residents did a food scan showing that Mattapan had 27 fast food restaurants within 2.8 square miles. And also without her, we would not have been able to serve about 2,900 residents at our farmers market last summer. It looks like Jaheem, who came to us through our Vigorous Youth group. In the Vigorous Youth are ages 14 to 21 at Mattapan Food and Fitness Coalition that work to improve the health and wellness in Mattapan. At 16, he helped create our first youth-led bike repair workshop, and he was my right-hand man for all things biking. He's currently 21. And it looks like me. I was a shy teen when I started working at Mattapan Food and Fitness Coalition as a Vigorous Youth. And since then, I have expanded our transportation work and revitalized our youth program. But why am I sharing all these stories? What is the problem that Mattapan Food and Fitness Coalition is trying to solve? Mattapan has health challenges, and the community of Mattapan has the highest rates of hypertension, obesity, and diabetes compared to the average in Boston. And this was on our founder's mind, Vivian Morris, when she founded the organization, a pediatric dietitian by trade, but a community activist by her heart. Her and her colleagues came together and they connected with residents to see what it is that they wanted to include more healthy options into their life. And what they found was that residents wanted better choices to healthy eating options as well as physical activity options. And this spurred our mission of promoting health and healthy behaviors by improving access to good nutritional and physical activity environments. The two things that I mentioned in the previous slide were just 2 of 5 inequities that we found, or problems that we found within our community. Environmental issues. not enough opportunities for youth to be engaged in the solution, and just general feelings of community as a whole feeling unheard when it comes to providing solutions to their community. And so this is a graphic, but it depicts what it is that how we get to our solution, how we involve community. And so we like to engage our residents in exploring the issues that we identified, collaborate with them and a variety of stakeholders to find a solution, and then advocate for the changes that we wish to see. And then we will know we are successful when everyone has access to healthy food and exercise options, when youth and community voices are being valued, and when our environment is well cared for. And so we're able to, you can go to the next slide. We're able to achieve all this impact thanks to the relationship building that we've done with the organizations in the previous slide, and also with volunteers, as our organization was started on a volunteer basis. You can go to the next slide. But where does community and mobility fit into our work? Mattapan, oh, sorry. The work that we do is on the intersection of transportation. So in order to get to your healthy food options, in order to get to healthcare, to your green and blue spaces, to your physical activity, to your work, to your school, for young people to be able to hang out with their friends, you have to think about how people are going to get there, and that's transportation. Next slide. And so Mattapan is also an environmental justice community, and advocacy plays a big part in reaching people who need to rely on these mobility options. What's challenging currently is that some residents are tired. There's a lot of planning meetings, transportation planning meetings happening in our community. We're overwhelmed. Some residents are frustrated because they're not being listened to, and they're afraid of gentrification. Some residents feel the city of Boston isn't communicating well about the projects. Some residents still feel strongly that Black people don't bike, and then that bike lanes are not needed, and feel that they are for others and not for those in the community. Next slide. But what's good is that our current administration cares about how others do get around. So they extended the transportation department. It has some familiarity and our mayor has some familiarity with bike advocates before becoming the mayor. And most importantly, advocates are becoming more diverse, and the city is tapping into residents to lead community engagement as opposed to being on the receiving end of it. And lastly, these are some of the ways in which MFFC gets our residents involved in the transportation advocacy, things that are happening through community events, through conversation series, through surveying and everything and the like. Thank you.
Thanks, Chevelle. Handing it over to you, Reverend Merland. Still on mute. Everyone has to do it at least once during a webinar.
My sincere apologies. Well, I will repeat. Good afternoon, everyone. Such a delight to be with you this afternoon and to be part of such a wonderful panel. I'm, of course, I'm Merland Desrosiers. I am the director of the Everett Haitian Community Center, which is an organization located in Everett that was founded in 2015. It's pretty young. It is committed to serving immigrant and marginalized communities in the greater Boston area. EHCC provides holistic assistance to individuals and families through community programs, resources, and wraparound services. As a critical resource to the community at large, EHCC bridges gaps for those in need as they access critical information and services, information about transportation, information about affordable housing, and many more. We work around key specific areas, outreach, engagement, education, advocacy, and community building. And the key services that we provide are first around affordable housing, application, and know your rights workshops. EHCC also runs a program called Project RISE, which means Resilient Immigrants Striving for Equity, a program geared at preventing problem gambling through emotional wellness activities, mental health support, and other social determinants of health and resources in the community. We also understand how it's important for a community to be healthy. And so we also run a program that connects them with Mass Health Insurance. This program helps inform residents of the steps they need to take to stay covered by Mass Health. This commitment to health equity allows many members of our community to maintain health coverage throughout the redetermination process and beyond. We also have a workforce development program, we have one, it's called Stitching Our Hopes and Dreams, which is simply sewing programs that it also includes ESL classes, and we do run a free after-school program. One of also the key opportunity that we've had as well is to participate in the Reimagine Broadway, of a BRT project. And for this project, our concentration was really on key outreach and community engagement. And also by extension, people may not think much about that. By extension, contributing to the economy by hiring youth to conduct, the surveys in terms of how pertaining to, mobility rights and also transportation access. So in a nutshell, that's what we do. And in terms of how we engage the community, we'll say that we use unconventional ways, and because we believe in true engagement. And if we could have the slides, and I can just quickly show you, through images. And actually, we can go to the next one, I believe. So that gives you an example of our participation. And you will see here, Everett Haitian Community Center. In people, had difficulties finding their ways, in Everett. And it particularly during, we'll say 2020, 2021, 2022, we have a lot of newcomers in the city of Everett. And so participating in the Reimagine Broadway and having, signage and signs where people would know where they can go. This really was great. And our role in that as well was to engage our community in the surveys to see if that was important. And we had surveys where people could answer. And we're very happy that now in many parts of Everett, especially on Broadway and other main streets of Everett, we had, as a result of the BRT, this amazing access to information on where people need to go. And you see this in English, but it's also, we have some also in Haitian Creole. The next one, this is, we're talking about when we get people engaged. One of the things that we get people engaged is through, you don't see here, food, and also getting the community together. This is an example of where we have the community coming together in participating in meetings, in many meetings where we have them, we ask them questions, we present information that we receive from them. The information are, is translated in not only in Haitian Creole, but also in context, using idioms that they can understand. Of course, sometimes when we have also parts of our population, for example, you will see some people here who are lighter skinned than Haitians. They are from the main part, from Morocco, they speak French. So that's why even when, to get their, to really get them engaged, not only materials, we had the great opportunity to work with Julia Wallace, who allows us and accepted the fact that it's not just Haitian Creole, we also serve population that speaks French, and therefore we need to translate this also into French and provide us the opportunity to translate, in French for those clients of us who are from the Morocco. It's really getting the people involved. Also, we have what we call in Haitian Creole kombit. Kombit is when you have people coming together around food and support each other in understanding what they need to understand to survive and make life, their lives better. So we also organized kombit once a month at also time that is really accessible to the community, not necessarily to us, to us. So it's really from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at night, every last Monday of the month. Why? Because to engage all members of our communities. We have a low-income community that works 3 to 11, 7 to 3 rather, 3 to 11, 11 to 7 p.m. So by providing, we cannot do it every day because we don't have that kind of budget, but at least in addition to the access that they have for meetings and coming to the center every day, at least once a month, every last Saturday of the month, they come to Kombit, where we also provide cultural food. And at that moment, at that place, throughout the day, everyone, whether they work 7 to 3, 3 to 11, 11 to 7, can swing by the center to receive the information that they will get. And that's how we had it around transportation. So you can see here some posts, and we also post those information on our website. Next slide can give you another photo, I believe, that will give you an image. And of course, that's our team.
That was great. Thank you for that context. And both from Chevelle and Reverend Merland already, just understanding the different contexts of your communities and what you do well beyond transportation or active transportation work to engage your community and connect them to what they need is really powerful. So thank you. Jared, I want to turn it over to you to talk about yourself and Transit Matters and some of the work you do around community engagement.
Great. All right. So happy to be here with everyone. My name is Jared Johnson. I'm the executive director at Transit Matters. Transit Matters is a transit advocacy organization that really focuses on trying to link better public transportation with climate change and with how we address climate change and also inequity, and how do we make our communities more vibrant. But as the shortcut, we like to say that we're people focused but data driven. And so Transit Matters, works on advocating for better transit in a ton of different ways. Everything from lots of reports and white papers to public advocacy. Think going to board meetings or rallies or supporting our grassroots partners. But also we do a lot of data analysis. And so the great thing about this is a lot of this is information that the T already puts out, but that we are able to synthesize and we're able to display it in a way that's easy for folks to understand. And our labs team has been around now for I think 5 years, and they've been doing an incredible job. Again, taking the T's data and being able to use that to help drive policy. An example of that was how the slow zone tracker, which looks at how long trains were taking between stations and how that related to the historical baseline, and how in many cases it was significantly longer. And that led to a big focus on the track conditions and a really big track improvement program that the T is undertaking this year. But we're here to talk about buses. And interestingly, buses have been a little bit harder to get the data on, but we're really excited. We've got a new relatively new dashboard that allows us to dig into some of the bus data. So today I'm going to focus on two bus routes. The number 1 bus, which is the big crosstown route, connects Harvard, MIT area through the Back Bay, medical facilities, and goes into Nubian Station, which is the big heart of Boston's Black and Brown community. And also the number 22 bus, which is another crosstown route further to the south, but it stretches from Dorchester through Roxbury and Jamaica Plain. Also another big route, and this is a crosstown route that connects more of Boston's environmental justice communities. So what we're looking at now is the travel times that it takes for the number one bus to go from end to end. And in the early morning hours before traffic starts, it can be less than 20 minutes. But at the peak, when traffic is at its heaviest, it can be upwards of what is this? Oh, the max. Yeah, it can be an hour and 15 minutes. So we're talking really extreme variation in that travel time. And then this is the headway. So this is the time between buses, and it ranges from 5 seconds is probably more of a blip, but it ranges from coming every 2 minutes to at the peak, or rather, sorry, at the most extreme, an hour wait between buses. But even just in the averages, you see a pretty wide variation, and that's because this is a route that has very, very little in terms of bus priority infrastructure. So now zeroing in on a route that does have some bus priority infrastructure, the T in the city of Boston introduced the first center running, high quality, real BRT standard infrastructure in the region in 2021. And so later in that year, and it really made a huge difference. So we're going to look at, this is a section that does not have the bus priority infrastructure, doesn't have the bus lane, and you can see the variation here is really pretty extreme. And this bottom line here, this gray area, is the benchmark. So this is what the T says. This is what the T says it should take for the bus to go through this section, and that a lot of times, unfortunately, is what the schedule says. And so the fact that it is almost never within that baseline is really concerning, because that means that when folks are waiting for the bus, according to the schedule, they're not seeing the bus at the time that it should come. And so that section is down there with the red arrow. And now we're going to look at the section with the green arrow, which is where they have that bus lane. And as you can see, a lot less variation. The vast majority of the times, except for some peak times during when traffic is heaviest, and that's partially probably because, unfortunately, with how the data is set up, there's a small section that we're looking at that is not in the bus lane. But as you can see, overall, the majority of the times are within that benchmark. So this is just using data to really confirm people's experiences. Our partners at Livable Streets Alliance and the City of Boston surveyed riders, and they could already tell the huge difference that those bus lanes made. So some of the other work that we do is advocating for the T's bus network redesign. And this is going to be a really exciting development that is going to dramatically increase the frequency of some of the T's most crowded bus routes and expand the number of routes that have all day frequent service. But one of the things that we're also trying to push is given that because of some political and funding constraints, a lot of this is happening because service is being moved from some of the fringes of the network to focus on the core. And we think that is really important in the short term, but that longer term we should be thinking about how do we grow the pie. And something I'm really proud of in the Boston area is at least among the transportation advocates, you don't have as much of the sort of the butting heads between the suburban areas and the core. And so this is something that I think a lot of us are really looking forward to pushing the T on, is that once we get through those first phases of bus network redesign, that we do think about how are we expanding service beyond the core and taking advantage of some of the bus lanes and bus infrastructure that exists outside of there. And I think why that's important is that while obviously there's a big movement afoot to make sure that we are spreading resources and making sure that all communities have opportunity and have cultural amenities. Right now that's not the case, and those opportunities and cultural amenities aren't always spread equitably throughout the region. And so having good public transportation, even to more affluent and suburban areas, is critical, not only for those opportunities, but also for the people who are currently making those trips now. We know that the folks who work in the hospitality sector in these communities are traveling from the outside. So that's just another piece of some of the work that we do. I also wanted to highlight that some of the maps that you saw and some of that data that we were just looking at is going to be a part of a report that we are putting out on Friday, where we're going to look at, you know, where are the slowest and most bunch buses throughout the system. And, you know, spoiler alert, the solution, the fix to a lot of those issues is bus priority infrastructure, and especially bus lanes that can make that trip faster and much more reliable. And this is why it's important. I'm sure folks have seen this graphic before, but it just really highlights that, you know, when we talk about, you know, congestion and making life better for folks, that our goal needs to be moving people and not cars. And we can see that, you know, there's really no better way to do that than transit priority infrastructure, whether that's dedicated bus lanes or whether that's turning over entire streets to buses. So looking at some of the ways that we work with community, this is highlighting a project that we did in conjunction with Reverend DeRozier. Incredible work there in Everett. And one of the things that I really loved about that project, and I think the Reverend brought that up, is that, you know, is that bus, you know, making life better for bus riders and making the bus experience better is so much more than paint on the street or the infrastructure that is on the bus way itself. It's also it's the wayfinding. It's making that station experience better. It's looking at this was during the height of COVID, so, you know, we had that extra street space. Looking at, can we set aside places for folks to just sit and relax? So a lot of this, and what was really exciting, is we were doing a project on, you know, what would it take to build mobility hubs, you know, around the region. And we were about 80% through with that project. And we said, you know, actually, let's take a pause, because we are being asked to help with this project in Everett. And that was the best thing that happened to that project, because it allowed us to go back and actually fill that toolkit with real life examples and so much of our learning from that project. And then the final project I'll talk about is one that we just wrapped up in Lynn, that was a credible partnership with ITDP, Boston BRT, Lynn United, Lynn United for Change, a local community-based organization there in the city of Lynn, where we worked with local artists to do incredible artwork at the bus stations, bus stops rather, to add bike infrastructure and to do some great wayfinding that really helped to just enliven that experience up there. So great. So I'll turn it back to you, Lisa.
Yeah, that's great. It's always nice to see sort of what people experience, to be able to see that and corroborate it with real data. So Transit Matters really helps to play that role. And like, I'm experiencing that my bus never shows up on time, and that's what it feels like. And that's often not always, but often the reality. And for Transit Matters to be able to support other local advocates in some of that storytelling with this really rich, easy to understand, up-to-date data set has been invaluable in making the case for better bus service in the region. You all did offer some examples of community engagement and working with the community and the role that it's played in transportation, but I wonder if any of you want to jump in to go a little bit deeper, or share another example to continue to kind of share what this really looks like with your constituencies and your communities. Chevelle, do you want to start again?
Yeah, I can definitely start, and I'll share my screen just because I think it's nice to have visuals when speaking. So excuse me, I'll pull this up for you all. And so, as I mentioned before, one of the things that Mattapan Food and Fitness Coalition noticed is that a lot of our residents were frustrated about the many planning meetings that were happening around transportation and street design, and some of them not really understanding what it means for them in the intersection and the quality of life, like the intersection of their life and what these street changes really mean. And so in 2020, myself and two other women of color, we came together to create Transportation Talks, because we wanted to engage more residents, those who identify as Black, Indigenous, a person of color, those who live in the communities that are similar to Mattapan, as Mattapan is 87% Black, which includes those who you live in the United States and those who come from countries such as Haiti, Jamaica, Barbados, etc. We wanted them to be able to explore these issues in a space that felt like it was made for them. And so overall, from 2020 up into 2022, we did about 11 talks. All of them are not seen here. Here we go. And so the goal of these talks were just to get more of our residents involved in these transportation changes. And these goals came about because as a resident myself that is experiencing, being in the planning meetings and feeling the frustrations of my residents, we wanted folks to become more understanding about the transportation landscape. And what is it that they can expect when they come to these community conversations? And so the success of this is that we had about 600 unique individuals, residents, come to our Transportation Talk community series because the topics that we discussed was relatable to them. We worked with the city of Boston to put on a specialty talk around arrested mobility. I don't want to butcher what Charles Brown means, defines what arrested mobility means. So I do encourage you all to look that up so you can gain your own understanding about what that space means. And the most important success of this transportation talks is that it led the city of Boston to contract community residents to support the redesign of a major transportation project that is happening in the community of Mattapan. And that is the first time that I have ever witnessed that happen. And it's a major stepping stone into community being intentionally involved in the way that they want to see their street. And so why this type of engagement worked is that the talks were presented by individuals who looked like the residents that live in Mattapan. Additionally, the guest speakers were also individuals who looked like the residents in Mattapan. And as you know, representation matters. There was a space for individuals to process and explore with others. It was not a lecture. It was more of not a workshop as well. The topics were relevant and local and not broad and national. And that really is important. And then the meeting goers were able to share information within the chat and learn from each other. And so we weren't trying to convince the minds that bike lanes are great and bus lanes are great. Like, that's not what the point of our conversation series was. It was so our residents could be able to become more informed and be able to make an informed opinion. And if they decide, hey, I still don't like bike lanes, even though I know what the benefit of them are, that's totally fine. At least they take a second thought to think about why these street changes are important to other users of the road.
That's beautiful, Chevelle. I love that. In some of the tea talks I went to, really met people where they're at. Some of the stuff you can, even if you Google it, it doesn't make sense. A lot of transportation planning can be a little bit counterintuitive. So to really break it down, it's an excellent example. Thank you. Merlande, you spent quite a bit of time with us on Broadway, directly talking with residents and your constituents. Could you dive into that a little bit more?
Yes, absolutely. In general, we do focus group, and of course, our focus was a lot on surveys, right? Conducting the surveys, not only having people, do it, but also have youth and adults go to, at the bus stops, right? And conduct the surveys. In addition, what we have as well, because we have a community, a low-income community, and that works, and also a big part of our community is faith. It's faith-based. So we also run what we call the Pulse of the Community through our radio station, which also streamlining on Facebook, and also what our community uses a lot, WhatsApp and Audio Now. So even when some people are, they are at work, if it's during their break, they can actually listen and participate in the program. And through the Pulse of the Community, we also invite public officials, community leaders also to participate and where people can answer questions. So in addition to face-to-face, a big part of engagement for us, and especially when our participation in Reimagine Broadway was at the heart of the COVID-19, we came to find out that using audio now, maybe for some of you, it's probably archaic, but we use audio now, as a web where people can actually, participate. And that way we also involve during the time we have for example, in the church, women's ministries, youth ministries, men ministries. So during the time that, they have services, we integrate where we collaborate with the faith leaders, the pastors, where they can have time. It's time for community participation, community engagement, and we'll allocate 15, 20 minutes of the time of service, of spirituality, for people to connect on a Pulse of the Community via social media, radio, and conference call audio now.
Those are great examples. Thanks. Jared, gonna pass it to you.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the differences, I think, between Transit Matters or the Everett Haitian Community Center or Mattapan Food and Fitness is, we work at a pretty wide geography, so we really have to depend on incredible orgs like theirs to help us, navigate the blind spots and understand, better understand the things that we can change in our advocacy or in our approach to make things better. And a couple of examples of that are when we were working with Lynn United for Change, they flagged, let's make sure that the colors are sensitive for those with color blindness, because some of the folks who were engaged with Lynn United for Change, are colorblind. So that was a great sort of, even just a small change, but it's something that's hugely important if you're trying to sort of display a bunch of these different routes and have folks be able to differentiate between them. And another great another great example of how that community engagement changed things for the better is when we were doing that work around the wayfinding and the mapping there in Lynn. Some local community advocates, some local transportation advocates highlighted the Northern Strand, which is a bike path that goes from I think it goes even way past Lynn, all the way into Boston, and they highlighted that we should be highlighting that in our signage, and that was a really great opportunity to not only highlight that, but then it also led us to get involved in an advocacy push to save that from, I'd argue, some short-sighted cuts that some of the local officials were trying to do to that path. And so, we were able to add our voice to the successful effort to save that path. And so now, not only do we have these great new bus stops, but we have, the opportunity to connect that to folks who live a little bit further away from that. They know that they can, take this safe, protected bike path to their final destination.
Appreciate that. I'm checking the clock, which is going quickly, and I do want to make sure to jump into some of the questions that are being asked in the Q&A. And one of the questions here is, how do you reach a decision to take the community's suggestions? It could be a suggestion not favored by many, which I think, if I'm reading that question right, means like, is there a thing called, is there consensus? How do you know if you've sort of reached a decision? What if the community decides something, or the loudest voices are saying one thing, but it might not be representative of the rest of the community? How, for anyone that wants to jump in, how in your roles have you navigated that? How do you approach it?
Okay, I can jump in. Well, for us, one of the things that we want the community to have their own voice, and that's part also because that's why, advocacy, in doing advocacy, and it's part also, it's connected to community building. We want people to become their own advocates, to that, so that we don't have to speak for them all the time, right? What we also have experienced is that because we are a trusted voice in the community, and because we don't just publish or information, we do education. When there's something that we need to do outreach for, we explain to people what it's about. We also explain the pros and the cons, and we have conversations. So there's a level of trust in the community. So meaning, so when we present it, when we talk about the pros and cons and get people into conversations, we have experience. I mean, our experience is that our community tends to, the first question is that, well, why do you think, where should we stand on this? So that's the question. And just like the same, they ask the same questions when it's time for voting, right? Doing election. So how would you vote on this? What is your thought on this? So, and then at the end, we usually have a consensus, because it's not just something on information we bring to them. It's education, is, going deeper into the, the issue in terms of the transportation. That's one part of it. The second part of it also, which puts us somehow at an advantage, we have a large community that is faith. It's faith-based. And so they trust the church, our communities, the churches, the leaders, the clergies, to bring them information and help them make informative decisions. So by doing so, because of that, they usually, after an engagement or meetings or conversations, at the end of the day, usually people come together. Very rarely where you have a disagreement on, why don't we do it the other way? So I think it's just a matter of a question of, because we are trusted voice in the community. So they sort of trust the information that as we provide, the pros and cons, and get also our feedback in terms of where we stand on an issue.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too is making sure that the community has the information that they need. Sometimes you'll find pushback, but the pushback is on things that just aren't factually correct. And I also think too, and this depends on the circumstance and how extreme of a change something can be. But I know that in the past, in Everett, there have been times where they say, you know what, let's just do a small time limited pilot with cones, nothing permanent, so that we can see, and so that folks can actually make an opinion based on what is actually happening on the street, not based on sort of what their greatest fears are. So I mean, I think it's and this is just adding on to everything the Reverend said. It's that trust, and it's that data. It's giving people a chance to sort of see how this works, and then it's also making sure that we are taking a broad view on sort of who the community is, and understanding that that the community is not only comprised of the folks who want to come out and talk about transportation at 6 p.m. on a Tuesday night.
For me, yes, I just want to agree with Reverend Merlon. Yes, MFFC, we are a trusted organization in the Mattapan community. I think we're like one of two organizations that do focus on transportation for Mattapan in terms of advocacy and getting information out there. And so as I think about consensus, and I think about the question that Lisa posed in the chat around how do we get how can planning, community residents being involved in planning improve? I'm still trying to figure that out, right? Like I'm still trying to figure out, how does the information that's given to the residents translate up the chain to the decision makers or those in power to make that final decision based on all the planning meetings and community engagement that has happened? I'm still trying to figure that out. I don't know. But one of the things that I've been reflecting on when it comes to being on the receiving end of those planning meetings and information, being a part of disseminating information, but I also founded my own community engagement firm to engage young people into the built environment of their planning. So being on the consultant end as well is that when you're working with your clients or whatever role that you play in the transportation space in your own communities or neighborhoods or countries, you have to ask them, or those who are making the decision, what is negotiable and what is not. Oftentimes in these meetings, transportation planners or those who are representing the plan say, we want to know, what do you want, right? And then the residents give their opinion about what they want. And then we come to the meeting next, and then nothing that the resident says is indicated in the presentation in the follow-up. And when you do that, you are causing more harm to a community that is already frustrated about all of the other things that have been done by your municipality in terms of getting information and then not doing anything with it. That further deepens the mistrust that the community residents have, and then they may not be so willing to participate in giving their opinion the next time that they see you. Lastly, those residents, they're going to get mad and frustrated at whoever is talking about whatever project. So they don't care about what your role is. You're talking about that project, so they're going to get mad at you and they're going to share their opinions with you. So just to go back to the question, I'm still trying to figure out what does that, when you get to that consensus, how does that relate to a decision? And then figuring out what is negotiable, what is not, what is it that you're trying to get from the residents, and what can actually be included into that transportation plan.
Yes.
Well, great answer, Chevelle. You go right ahead, Ron.
Yes, and I would concur with Chevelle and also add that you know, we would definitely need to have meaningful participation of community organizations that are, organic, that are part of the community. And from the beginning, not at the end. Sometimes tendencies are, well, we want you to engage your community, and how we want you to engage your community, we're gonna send you the flyers that we have, because of a decision making, and please share your flyers with your community. Sorry, that's not engagement. And now more than ever, we may have a large community, and I'm changing really the tone, and this is very serious, that may be illiterate, but they're not stupid, right? And with now the age of the age, it's really the age of information, and with also the age of organizations, within the community, like organizations Haitian led, from us, that has made it, part of the core of what we do in informing, educating people, getting them, not just, getting them involved, real involvement, and understand policies, understand decisions that are being taken, understand the issues. They want to really be real participants in what affects their lives. And so we would say, support entities. We would say, yes, what should happen? Also, yeah, more funding for organizations that talk the talk and walk the walk, like the Bar Foundation, you know what I mean, and other organizations that actually also, and BRT, that that did a wonderful work, and also entities, in the community that respect, that provides dignity to community organizations, to also members of the community, to participate in the decision-making process, not to impose, from beginning to end, and so that we can also translate that to our community. But real participation, not real engagement. And when we say that as well, and also give them the security, if that's the word, to know that when they take their time, because when you have a low-income community, it takes time to participate in a focus group, to participate in a survey, to participate in parts of the community, radio, audio, presentations and conversations. They take time from their $15 an hour job to participate, which they don't have. So it takes a lot for them to participate and do that. So we say, so continue to fund the entities, the organizations, the agencies, the foundations that can really open the door for to work both with the community organizations, grassroots organizations, within the community, and by extension, those who are impacted, who will be impacted by the policies and the decision-making process.
It's a beautiful way to end, and so true. Thanks for summarizing that so well. I'm going to hand it back over to Iwana, and thank you so much, y'all. I learned a lot there and really enjoyed that. Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone. And of course, we would quickly run out of time. Obviously, we covered a lot, and hopefully these stories from Boston region and transport planning give our listeners some food for thought and some tips on how to plan better transport and how to do it together with the community. So thank you so much for coming along today, Chauvel, Reverend, Merlin, Jared, and of course, Lisa for moderating. So many unanswered questions. I know that. Let's hope we can keep this dialogue going. And then hopefully the following webinars, they could be about other cities, but hopefully they can also shed some light about transport planning and the concerns that our audience may have. So again, thank you so much for being here today. If you are interested in our future webinars, there are links in the chat about the 2 upcoming ones this month. And we'll share the recording with you very soon of this session. Thank you so much for coming. Bye-bye, everybody.